There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Happy New Year. Welcome back to my channel. Here is my video that I love to do every year, my most anticipated releases of the coming year, this year being 2023. Although I do have to admit that I debated whether to do it or not this year because looking back at my most anticipated releases from 2022, I bought a bunch of them, I read very few of them, and probably they are all still of interest to me, but I'll end up reading them when they are solidly backlist books. So what is the point of this? Well, the point of this is that, like all of yous, I get really excited about new books coming out, and it's just like playing with them. Alina from Rotterdam made a lovely comment at the Patreon party the other day where she said that I have two hobbies. One is reading. The other one is looking up books, researching books, reading book reviews, all that stuff. And I would add collecting books as a separate hobby from reading books. So because of all of those enthusiasms, here I am back again for another year. And without any further ado, let's get started. Unlike years past, I have actually gone to the trouble of putting these in publication order. I haven't gone the extra step of figuring out whether these are UK or North American release dates. The publisher name I have, which may be a clue, but these are the publication dates, expected publication dates. I have one that has no publication date as of yet, and this one is probably the one I'm most excited about. It is the debut work of fiction, I believe it's a novella, by my friend and frequent guest on Bite-Sized Book Chats, James. He is famous on bookish Twitter as being the caustic cover critic, and his debut work of fiction is coming out from a Canadian press. James lives in Adelaide, Australia. It's coming out from a Canadian press, I think a micro press maybe, from Edmonton, Alberta. The title is Gibbons, or One Bloody Thing After Another, by James Morrison. Don't have a cover image. The publisher is Orbis Tertius Press. I'll put a link to that small press in Edmonton, Alberta in the show notes, and we don't have any more information other than it's supposed to be coming sometime this year, and I have already booked, pre-booked an interview, a chat with James about his book once I've read it and once it comes out. The first release is probably going to have been released by the time this video goes live, because I'm filming this on New Year's Day. It's coming out the day after tomorrow. It's a queer novel that sounds fascinating. The title, and this is coming out January 3rd from Scribner, The New Life by Tom Crewe, and it is kind of a takeoff on Havelock Ellis and John Addington. I think that the fictional characters are based on John Addington Symonds and Havelock Ellis, set in the summer of 1894, and they are queer intellectuals of their day, writing about inversion and this and that, and it's about their personal lives. That's all I need to know. I can't wait for that one, 400 pages. I'm hoping to get the Scribner cover because the Chatto Windus cover is pretty ugly. I'll put them both up. You tell me which one you like better. And coming on January 10th from Doubleday Books is a work of Indigenous literature from what we colonially refer to as Canada, but it is a horror novel called Bad Cree by Jessica Johns. I'm scared because I want to read this, but I don't mean that horror fiction scares me. I just have no interest usually in genre fiction of any kind, maybe especially horror, but this one does sound fascinating. It's a debut tinged with supernatural horror. A young Cree woman's dreams lead her on a journey, and it's got horror. That's all I'm going to tell you. That's all I want to read about it until I read it. I am planning to get to that one fairly soon. I'm very excited about this other one, which comes on the 13th of January by one of my favorite writers, the Indian writer Anukrti Upadhyay. I read two of her novellas last year, and both of them were 5-star reads for me, so she's now on that upper echelon of one of my very most favorite writers. And this is a collection of short stories called The Blue Women, coming out, like I said, on the 13th from HarperCollins, India. I can't find that I can easily get a paper copy to Canada, but it's fairly wide. It's going to be fairly widely available on ebook, so I will settle for that in the short term and can't wait. She's a fantastic writer. On the 17th of January, a work of translated fiction called The Words That Remain by Stênio Gardel. Translated by Bruna, Dantas, Lobato, and why did I choose this one? Oh, the cover's kind of interesting. Kind of interesting. I have to ponder my response to the cover. I don't know which publisher. New Vessel Press. Oh, it's an LGBTQ novel from Brazil. That's why I chose it. An auspicious debut. It's a novella, really. It's a letter that the protagonist received 50 years ago from his youthful, I don't know if they were partners, but his youthful passion. And he still has the letter, and plot ensues. That's all I need to know. Woo-hoo-hoo! On the last day of January, January 31st, from Viking, from Botswana. Short stories from Botswana. Call and Response by... I'm gonna need some help with this one. Okay, I can't find pronunciation, so I'm just gonna do my best here. Gothataone Moeng. I don't know if anybody can help me with that. Short story collection. The lives of ordinary families in contemporary Botswana. That sounds fabulous. The next one is coming out in February from Lolli Editions. The title is Memorial, the 29th of June. That's how we're supposed to say that. Even though that's not how it's written. That's what I teach my students. You can write it any which way but if the date is before the month, you must say the 29th of June. So that's what I'm saying. It's by Tine Høeg, translated by Misha Hoekstra. This novel is about the connection between loss and the creative impulse. The opening premise is that the main character is invited to a memorial on the 10-year anniversary of her university friend's death. And who is Tine Høeg? She's a Danish writer. Well, I have not read very many Danish writers, and I want to read more, so that's probably why I chose it. On February 7th, I believe this is the Daša Drndić's debut novel, but certainly it's one of her early ones. It's called, in English, Battle Songs, and translated, as I think they all have been, by Celia Hawkesworth. This came onto my radar because I had a lovely visit with Dan, formerly of the Weird Book Club, hopefully also in the future of that channel. And we're going to buddy read it in, I think, the month it comes out, February. I have only read Trieste, and it's one of the most devastating, impactful novels I've ever read. How about that cover? There's a Canadian connection because it's set in the 1990s, and the protagonist leaves Yugoslavia with her daughter to start a new life in Toronto. Here is an Indian novel called One Small Voice by Santanu Bhattacharya, coming out February 23rd from Fig Tree. Set in 1992, in the middle of a bunch of riots. The protagonist is just like 10 years old at that time. And then plot ensues, and I think this might have a queer twist, actually. I think it might. This one is definitely queer, I remember. March 14th from Catapult. Brother and Sister Enter the Forest by Richard Mirabella. It opens like a fairy tale, which I'm a little nervous about, and ends like a nightmare. I'm not sure, but it's still... Everything else sounds compelling. It's a cannonball of a queer coming-of-age novel. A young man's relationship with a violent older boyfriend. And then how he and his sister survive a terrible crime. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one, but... so I think I must have to at least try it. April 4th. This is an Indigenous novel. The Berry Pickers by Amanda Peters. And I don't think the publisher is named. Oh, this one is set in Maine. Oh, it's set in Nova Scotia, a Mi'kmaq family, so that's an Indigenous family, Mi'kmaq tribe in Nova Scotia, and arrives in Maine to pick blueberries for the summer, and their youngest daughter goes missing. That sounds really fascinating. Yeah, Heidi, I think I might be hitting you up for a buddy read of that one. Oh, by the way, this is just as good a place as any to pause, because I should have addressed this at the beginning of the video. I don't think I have any Canadian titles other than that one Indigenous title. The Canadian publishing industry sucks in so many ways, but one of the ways that it sucks big time is nobody puts out forthcoming releases Like there'll be a video, there'll be some articles like in the middle of January about forthcoming releases for the year. But we are such a provincial publishing. I mean, there are some good publishers, small press publishers that I love. But nope, I think everybody is just asleep at the switch compared to all the other countries and all the other literary interests I have. I cannot find anything about forthcoming Canadian lit titles on a timely basis. End of rant. From Seagull Books, April 5th. The Postman of Abruzzo by Venus Corrigata. Translated by Teresa Lavender Fagan. I had a bite-sized chat about one of her other novels, and it sounded enticing. So when I saw this, I thought, oh well, maybe I'll start with this one. Themes of belonging, foreignness, and ethnicity. Set in Abruzzo, in Italy. The woman's geneticist husband is dead. She goes to the city, Abruzzo, where he had been studying the Albanian subculture, the Albanian ethnic enclave or whatever in that city. And it's what happens to her there. And I think it's quite a dramatic story, just with only one eye open. While glancing at the synopsis, it looks pretty dramatic. This is the only other, I think, Canadian title on this, or else I'm going to have to eat some humble pie. And I don't know how to pronounce any of this, but it's called Tahau, and it's coming out April 10th from the House of Anansi. Tahau by Kotoku Titihuia Nuttall. And it's an exploration of an indigenous families, womanhood, and alternate post-colonial realities by a writer of Maori and Coast Salish descent. So that is absolutely fascinating. Maori, you all know, that's what was colonized to become New Zealand. But Coast Salish is a tribe in what was colonized to become British Columbia in Canada. So she has both of those backgrounds. And in fact, this novel explores all of that. So part of it set in what is Vancouver Island, but it's a reimagined version, and then also in what is colonially referred to as New Zealand. Oh my god, that is so exciting. April 11th, Ballantine Books. Oh yeah, I love this cover and this title, Small Joys. This is a queer novel. An unexpected friendship saves a young man's life. Moving, utterly charming debut. Opens in 2005. The protagonist quits university, goes back to his hometown, rural England, estranged from his father. And then he ends up having a roommate named Muddy, and rather complicated, interesting, dramatic plot ensues. April 18th, a debut novel by a British-Nigerian writer, The 5 Sorrowful Mysteries of Andy Africa. Hey lovely people, well I'm having to patch in a lot of corrections because I was sick as a dog when I made this video the other day. The author is, let me do my best attempt to pronounce his name, Stephen Buoro. I love the title. That cover is to die for. One-of-a-kind teenager goes on a journey of self-discovery in the shadow of colonialism and communal violence in Nigeria. That would be a cover by, but I hope that it would be end up being more than that. Oh, this is one I'm very excited about. This one I will probably pre-order. It's coming out April 20th. It's by one of my favorite writers, Rowan Hiseo Buchanan, an Asian American writer, and I adored both of her previous novels. This one is called The Sleepwatcher, and if I didn't say, it's coming out April 20th from Hodder and Stoughton. Her previous ones that I loved. Harmless Like You, her debut. Just, that novel gutted me. And then her second one was maybe even better, Starling Days. So I have high hopes for this, her third novel. The Sleepwatcher, the 16-year-old protagonist experiences insomnia, and the story goes from there. That's all I need to know about that. I can't wait! May 11th. This one, it's a little bit ridiculous that I'm looking forward to this because I haven't gotten around to reading this writer's debut, but I've heard such fabulous reviews. So I must commit to reading this guy's debut novel early this year so that I will be ready for his second one if things go well. Small Worlds by Caleb Azuma Nelson, May 11th from Viking. Fathers and Sons, religion and stuff. Parents are very religious, set between London and Ghana. This is a bit of a Marmite writer, but I'm a big fan of hers, even though I haven't read her most famous and have no intention of reading her most famous book. But Emma Cline has a second novel, I believe, coming out. This is coming out May 16th from Random House, The Guest. I don't read books that are about serial killers or anything. That's just not a subject that I will ever read about. So I didn't read The Girls, but I loved her short story collection, Daddy. It was the best short story collection I read in 2021, I believe. So I'm very excited about this. The young woman assumes a false identity. Yeah, that's all I need to know. Here is one that came to me solely because I follow all these very wise, bookish people on Twitter, and I don't remember who it was that tweeted about this, but it went straight to the top of my TBR. May 16th from Echo Press. And this is biographical essays or a book of joint biography. What is the word I'm looking for? Multiple biographies in one. Let me just give you the title and you can figure out what to call it. It's called A Life of One's Own. 9 Women Writers Begin Again by Joanna Biggs. Just the title alone just gives me goosebumps. That's a lovely cover. And it says it's a piercing blend of memoir, criticism, and biography, examining how women writers across the centuries carved out intellectual freedom for themselves. So, hello. And some of the people here, you will not be surprised. Sylvia Plath, Virginia Woolf, George Eliot, Zora Neale Hurston, Elena Ferrante, but so many of the writers that I'm drawn to engage directly with that topic in their work. I'm thinking Cora Sandell, and I'm also now thinking of Amina Kane. That one sounds fantastic. Another one translated by my friend Tina Cover, coming out in the middle of May from Europa Editions. The postcard by Anne Berest. So it's set in the kind of the literati, the intellectual elites of Paris in the 20th century. A family devastated by the Holocaust, all to do with mothers and daughters, family secrets. I don't need to know anymore. But then there's a postcard that comes and just all hell breaks loose. Ooh, can't wait for that one. June 13th from Norton, Pony Boy by Elliot Duncan. And this is a queer book, isn't it? Yes, look at that cover. That's quite striking. Oh, this is a trans-masculine novel. Debut novel, Addiction, Transmasculinity, Pain and Joy of Becoming. The Pony Boy is the protagonist, and he's a pill-popping, speed-snorting, trans-masculine lightning bolt. Caught in a messy love triangle with other people. I'm getting vibes of one of the best novels to come out in recent years, Detransition Baby. Getting some Detransition Baby vibes. That's getting me all riled up. Lorrie Moore. The American novelist and short story Lorrie Moore has a new novel coming out June 20th from Knopf. I Am Homeless If This Is Not My Home, which is a pretty enigmatic title. I think she's a bit of a Marmite writer too, isn't she? Somehow people have gotten early copies of this because right now, 2 ratings, 3.5 stars. But I ignore that because I like pretty much anything I've read by Lorrie Moore. This is a ghost story set in the 19th and 21st centuries. Well, if anybody's gonna sell me on that, it's Lorrie Moore. And this one I'm also excited about because I had, to be honest, I had given up that this third in the trilogy would ever come out. And, oh me of little faith. This is Carrot, I think you would pronounce it, but it might be Carré, by Adam Morris Jones. And it is the third and final, obviously, novel in the John Cromer trilogy that started with Pilcrow and continued with Cedilla. I loved Pilcrow. I liked Cedilla not as well as the first one, and this is now, I think it's been 10 years since Cedilla came out, I'm not sure, but this one's coming out. It's set in 1970s Cambridge, and the protagonist is a gay disabled man, and it's really, really done well, especially that first one, Pilcrow. So I hope this one finishes the series off with a bang, sometime in August, from Faber. And lastly, Anne Enright, the preeminent Irish novelist, has a novel coming out September 7th from Jonathan Cape. The Wren, the Wren. Now, I'm nervous about this one for an extraneous reason. The only famous book that I've tried to read that had a repeat title like that, The Sea, was one of the worst books I ever tried to read in my life. And I know there's a lot of you out there shaking your head at me, but I don't care. It was absolute crap. But otherwise, Anne Enright can probably do a better job than Iris. 3 generations of an Irish family. That's all I need to know. And there isn't much more available about that. Where there are covers, I've shown you them. And which ones of these are you looking forward to? And are there any I missed that you want to bring to my attention? Comment section below, please. Thanks for watching.